Alf, it's Geoff Wilson again, back in the news. Sets the sports card hobby internet on fire.
Let's see who's got balls.
With some takes around PSA upcharges. We're going to talk about that today. I believe even Ty Wilson got in on the fun with a post. The Wilson brothers from another mother, the Wilsons, were all over the internet over the last couple of days talking about PSA upcharges. We're going to go through that as well as the hottest cards on eBay at the end of the video. So make sure to stick around to the end. Don't forget to get your discount PSA $25 off your first submission over there with the SCD25 code at the shipping and billing screen. Card Capsule. You want supplies, quality supplies at affordable prices. Card Capsule, $25 off your first $100 spend with the SCD25 code. If you're looking for all of the hobby discounts, they're all there in my video description as well as the pinned comments, so make sure to take advantage. All right, so what did Geoff Wilson say here? Now, the thing I think is really funny is there are tons of these posts all the time. It's people basically showing that they got an email from PSA Grading saying, I'm writing on behalf of PSA regarding submission, blah, blah, blah. It contains one or more items that do not qualify for the submitted fee due to their graded value, and it's basically the upcharge email. That's the one that comes through. And so Geoff Wilson posts this, 2 days ago. I don't care what anyone says, this is the greatest email you can get, especially on a single card sub when PSA now thinks a card is worth $100,000. Take my money all day long. PSA card grading is the most immediate value increase money can buy. And it might shock you to learn that people were not happy about this post, and he got into a kind of a fun little back and forth with a bunch of different folks on this. And then he followed up with another post. You guys don't get it. PSA just didn't grade my card. They added over $50,000 in value to it. I'm happy to pay them a $4,000 commission, aka upcharge, for doing this. Think of it like betting $50,000 on a hand of blackjack, winning and then tipping the dealer $4,000. Everyone wins. I don't really like the gambling analogy that he tied there on the back of it. But again, a lot of people had things to say about that post. And then boom, another post from yesterday, another post from Geoff. If you really hate PSA's upcharges that much, then why don't you grade with another company? The comments yesterday were 99% hate on PSA's upcharges and me. So why then do PSA's grading numbers keep rising while BGS, SGC, and CGC languish far, far behind? Money talks, and right now, despite the noise in the comments, the money is all going to PSA. So a few different thoughts on this. I want to take this from a little bit of a different angle than what I've seen people posting about and talking about. And let me also say too, PSA is a channel partner, so my bias is here, but I will tell you that I've been a fan of PSA and third-party grading long before I was ever partnered with them, and I'm going to tell you why that is. First off, nobody is going to be happy about paying more for a particular thing. And I can understand when a collector who's just looking to hold the card, they're like, man, I've got to pay an extra $1,000. In Geoff's case, that is probably 1% of the cases, I have to assume, of cards that are upcharged by PSA. 1 to 5%. It's got to be a low number where he was upcharged $4,000. That's an expensive card. Most people that get upcharged, when I've been upcharged, for example, it's like, okay, I submitted it at $50 and now they're upcharging it to $75 or $80 or $100. They're upcharging me an extra $50 here or an extra $100 or whatever, or $20. They're not huge upcharges. So his example there is kind of more of an extreme example for most people. Again, I can't understand if you're someone that's just collecting cards and you want them for preservation and you're like, man, I got to pay an extra $50, an extra $1,000 or whatever it is for these upcharges. If you're not immediately selling, then you're thinking like, oh, well, I'm paying extra for something that I'm not selling. However, if you are selling, and I think a lot of people, they're buying, they're grading, they're flipping cards, the confidence in the secondary market for PSA 10s, as an example here, this Brady card, it is a lot higher. What people are willing to pay for a PSA 10 or a 9 over a 7 or whatever, you use whatever example you want, that PSA slab, I know it's just a piece of plastic, but them putting their stamp on it saying that it's authentic and grading it out at whatever particular grade it is, that is giving consumer confidence. And I want to talk about consumer confidence. Going back in time, going back to when I was a kid in 1990, there was no PSA grading. They got started in 90 or 91, 92, whatever it was, early 90s. But I can remember never seeing a PSA slab in 91 or 92 in a card shop. I never saw them. Now, maybe there was one or two there and I just missed it. But my point is I remember Joe Orlando talking about this going back in an interview a couple of years ago. And he said that their first 10 years of business from 1990 to year 2000, they graded about 1 million cards. In 10 years, they graded 1 million cards. Now, you guys see the gem rate numbers. They do 1.5 million pretty consistently every single month now. So we're talking about a vast difference in what was happening back then versus now. But when people wonder, well, how come there wasn't more money that was put into trading cards or collectibles back then? There's probably a variety of factors that go into that as well. It was still kind of a new-ish market. I would argue that in the 90s, it was still a new-ish market for people to put significant money into. A perfect example of that is Marshall Fogel. I believe he bought one of the 3 PSA 10 mantles in the early 90s, like 1995. For $150,000 in a PSA 10 holder. I'm sure a lot of people thought he was nuts. Like, who the hell's PSA? Like, what is this? It was still a new market. Trading cards were not a new market. So sports cards were not new. But the idea of people putting a lot of money into them was still fairly new in the 90s. Well, how people were putting money into them, significant money, was more stacking ungraded singles of prospects like Greg Jeffries and Todd Van Poppel and Don Mikowski, the Magic Man down there in Green Bay. You know, people speculating on ungraded cards and just stacking those up. 89 Upper Deck Griffies. I got 100 of them. Or whatever it was. Jose Canseco's. It wasn't buying graded cards because that was not a thing yet. It wasn't something that had really taken hold. And it was still too new. There was not consumer confidence. And again, I'll go back to the consumer confidence part. When you were going to a card shop owners, they didn't have the ability to really scale up. The difference between card shops now and the hobby now is that businesses have been born out of being scaled up because of third-party grading. PSA being the largest, the biggest of this group. There's consumer confidence behind CGC and SGC and these other companies as well. Just people aren't willing to pay as much for other grading companies as they do with PSA. Part of that is the PSA guarantee is strong. The guarantee that, if they're grading something and then years down the road, if something is sideways with it, they offer a guarantee on that. There's a cost associated with it. Now, if people want to argue the percentage that they want or something like that on the upcharge, if people are like, oh, I wish it was lower or something, fine. I think that maybe that's debatable. You could say like, oh, well, I think that that's too much that they're taking on the upcharge. But the idea that they would never take any sort of an upcharge when their stamp of approval, their quality control, if you will, their stamp of approval that's trusted, that creates consumer confidence that people will pay up for on the secondary market. The idea that they wouldn't take any sort of a piece of that if it's, very expensive in Jeff's case, $50,000 card or $100,000 card, and they took an extra $4,000. It is a lot of money, but it's all relative to, if Jeff, I don't know what the circumstances are. If Jeff bought the card for, $30,000 ungraded, and then it grades out, and now it's worth $100,000, it's a $70,000 difference, and then he pays out $4,000 to get the $70,000 difference. If he's selling the card, that's pretty good. You're making out pretty good. I also want to talk about the overall ecosystem impact that PSA has had on the market. There are many, many businesses that are mostly reliant on PSA grading to have a business. If we're looking at buyers, sellers, card dealers, card dealers looking at buying raw cards, grading them out and selling them. And whether that's a small-time flipper that's looking to level up, third-party grading, PSA being the largest one, offers the ability, and even if it is a handful of your cards that get a PSA 10, or maybe it's a more rare card and it gets a 9 or it gets an 8, a lot of times if it's a more rare card, you don't necessarily need the PSA 10, you just need it in a PSA holder, and then there's confidence there. Okay, it's authenticated. It's authentic card, and it got an 8. Fine, that's great. You don't necessarily have to have a 10. For some of the more common stuff, the 10 matters. And then obviously, if you have vintage cards, the higher that you get on kind of that quality scale, then it's going to impact pricing. It gives not only collectors the ability to level up the value of their collection, but then also flippers. It gives a lot of people like me. Look, when I was a kid, when I was 9 years old in 1990, we had the Beckett magazine, which was great, but there wasn't the extra ability. There wasn't that next step to be able to scale up and actually create businesses, really scalable businesses like we have today. Third-party grading allows that to happen. When you look at new product, this is another example of how do PSA 10s affect new product coming out? Well, not only are people looking at new product and saying, okay, what does the checklist look like? And let's say sports cards and then also Pokemon. Let's throw Pokemon in because that's also a huge part of what's happening in third-party grading. It's just a huge part of the trading card industry. People are looking at, okay, what are the pulls, the big pull cards? And then also they're looking at, okay, but then what is the differential there for PSA 10s when we grade out? Maybe it's a more common card, but consumers want those more common cards in PSA 10 holders. Third-party grading puts more confidence around being able to buy, sell, trade that new product coming out. It adds another dimension to it that we just didn't have. Not to mention thwarting fraud type activity. If we go back in time to the 80s and 90s as money was starting to come into the market, there's a lot of trimming. There's doctoring of cards. We've seen this over time, decades of this happening. A PSA is there to help a consumer to be able to say, oh, that's not a reprint. That's a real card. Oh, okay, there's a crease in it that I didn't see. There have been instances here in the last 6 months, I've had PSA submissions come back where it's a card that was printed a year ago, and it's got a very small crease in it that I did not see, and it's a 4, or it's a 5 or 6 that comes back. And in 1990, the dealer would have, if they saw it or didn't see it, they would have sold that as near mint, not knowing that there's a crease there. The consumer doesn't know. Or frankly, the dealer would have sold it to you as like, hey, yeah, this is a mint card, hoping that you don't see what they saw. That's the whole point of this, is to have a third-party companies that are there to help authenticate these cards and to give an idea of condition. Of course, it's subjective. It's going to be different one card to the next, but we still need it, in my opinion, to have consumer confidence. And it's not even just for people buying high-end cards, $1 million cards, but it's to have consumer confidence for people to buy a $100 card or a $200 card. In 1990, it was not common for people to spend $200, $500, $1,000 on a sports card. Now it's an everyday occurrence, multiple times. I mean, look at the $300 million of trading card sales monthly, pretty consistently now, but PSA is a huge part of why that is. So, and I understand that, upcharges, nobody likes to spend more than they want to. But I think when we look at the broader scope and we look at, the ecosystem and how many businesses are there that are buying, selling, trading, I would rather be operating in a sports card hobby and a collectibles hobby where there's a really robust ecosystem. I would rather that than what we had in 1990, where we had a big boom of young people, adults that were getting in speculating on trading cards, but there was not the infrastructure there to be able to handle it and to make it into a real market. Now today we have a real market. It's got its flaws, it's got things that we can work through and all that. There's always room for improvement, but we are in a much better place. It's a totally different galaxy, different ball game than it was going back when I was a kid during that first big boom of trading cards. All right, now let's flip the camera around and look at some of the hottest cards on eBay in the PSA store. Be right back. Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the Sports Card Dad. We've got some of the hottest cards on eBay back this week. And there's going to be some players in here that you might not have on your radar. So this is going to be fun. We're going to start off with some vintage baseball. But first, also, before we dive in, though, make sure to take $25 off that first PSA submission or tell a friend that's not used PSA before. Just a 1-card minimum to try out PSA and just understand how this works. So when you grade cards with PSA, you can send them to the vault and keep them there. You can send them to the vault and then decide, I'm going to sell these on eBay. And then another thing that's happening is you can get immediate offers on some cards that will come through just right there as they're getting graded. So there's a lot of things going on here as you grade through PSA. When you buy a card on eBay, you can then move it to the PSA vault. You don't necessarily have to ship it home if you don't want to. And you can kind of mix and match here too. If you grade 20 cards, you can send 7 of them home to keep and take a look at. And then you can send 13 off to the PSA vault to sell later. So there's all sorts of different integrations options for you when you are using PSA grading and then also just buying cards on eBay. Some really cool integrations there. All right, let's dive into our first card in the PSA eBay store. Make sure to save PSA as a favorite seller so that you can see all the deals pop up as cards get put into the vault or are graded through PSA. All right, first off, we have got a 1958 Topps Mickey Mantle and a PSA 6. I was looking at Card Ladder data, and this one popped up here, a recent sale at, I believe, $1,900 or so. This one ends on Sunday night. At time of recording, it's at $510. So I don't think it's going to stay at $510, but a nice copy here, PSA 6 of one of the greatest Yankees of all time and one of the most hobby-relevant players. Man, everybody loves Mickey Mantle, it seems like, and this goes back decades. The nice card here. These 50s baseball cards never get old to me. Just the time period in the United States, just a really cool time. So here's one, Mickey Mantle, 58 Topps, PSA 6. All right, next up, we've got a 1956 Topps, this gray back Willie Mays and an SGC 4. This one actually is centered pretty nicely. It's got kind of a little bit of the rounded corner thing going, which I really don't mind at all. It means that it hasn't been messed with, hasn't been trimmed from the looks of it. This one's sitting at $475 buy it now. I was looking at recent sales for this one, and it looks like it ranges, and this is how it goes with vintage cards. Anywhere from $350 to an auction that ended at $493. I think it was another kind of well-centered copy. So this person, I think, has priced it out kind of similar to that last sale because the centering is pretty nice on this one. Yeah, it's got a little bit of the rounded corners, edges, but overall, just a really nice copy. And I can't say enough, the Say Hey Kid here, my favorite vintage baseball card guy. These 50s baseball cards, I just think that they're legendary. They're classic, always relevant to me in the hobby. I just don't see that ever really changing. It was just a great time for baseball card collecting and also just athletics. Baseball as a sport was really booming in the 1950s. Now, many of you, I'm sure, are probably wondering to yourself, and you've been waiting for me to bring this card up on the screen, what's going on in the Spencer Rattler market? The Spencer Rattler market. I brought this one up, brought it up just for fun. Here is a 2024 Optic Hollow. It's the autograph version. It is in a PSA 10, sitting at $60. As a Saints fan, I want to like Rattler. I want to like him, but he's doing enough to really show that he can be a starter in the league, but he's not doing enough. And look, the supporting cast isn't helping him. Chris Olave can't catch a ball. He seems to be dropping everything. We can't seem to get over the hump sitting at 1-5. Playing some okay ball, competitive football, but just not getting over the hump. So I think Spencer Rattler has shown that he can be a decent quarterback in the league, but will he continue to ascend, to get better? And is it the team that's just not built around him? Is there not enough offense there, offensive weapons? Or is he limited? I thought I would throw this up for fun. It's numbered to 150, $60. I'm going to hold off as a Saints fan. I'm going to hold off on getting any Spencer Rattler cards for now, but thought I would just take a look at this one. Kobe continues to be very hobby relevant. Kobe Bryant, especially when you go back to these 90s cards. Of course, he passed away too young, way too young, but I like to look back at some of these 90s cards of his. This is not a rookie. This is second year, 1997 Fleer Ultra Star Power Plus. At time of recording, it's $2.85 here, PSA 6. It ends Thursday next week, so definitely have some time on a card like this. I just love Fleer Ultra 90s cards. And there's not anything super special about them, but just designs and everything that they came out with. This one is just really rad. But the Fleer Ultra logo, I don't know what it is. I just have a nostalgic thing. I feel like this one has a great picture, and it's affordable Kobe stuff. A lot of times when we see Kobe Bryant cards, whether it's at auction watches or whatever, it's the best Kobe Bryant cards on earth, that are, 5 figures, 6 figures, whatever, maybe even 7 figures. But here we have an example of 90s insert card at an affordable price with the 97 Fleer Ultra Star Power Kobe. We'll stay on Kobe here. Rookie year Kobe, and this is a more important card for him. Skybox EX2000. It's in a PSA 4, and because of condition, it's affordable. Right now, again, ends Thursday next week. 6 days left at time of recording. It's at $10.50. It's not a rare card. The total pop here on eBay showing us the PSA pop. The total right now is 7,200 cards have been graded, so not a rare card at all. Once you get into, look here, I'm sure the 10, there's only 24 10s of this card. It's the same with Michael Jordan. The 10s are very expensive. The 9s a little bit more affordable, 8s a little bit more affordable, and so on. This is a lower grade copy, but again, for a collector that just wants a copy of the card, not a super rare card at all, but a nice 4 here, and it's at $10.50 at time of recording, an opportunity to get a well-priced card. All right, next up, we've got a card that was really hot, kind of leading up to the licensed Wembanyama cards coming out. 2023 SI for Kids. This one is a PSA 7. And I was looking at card ladder data on this because I was thinking, what is this card currently sitting at? So a recent price here, going back about a week ago, was $185. So this one, I think, trying to capture just the season starting. Here, this one's listed at $245, PSA 7. Like I said, a recent sale here about a week ago at $185. So I think this person trying to catch maybe a ride up if the NBA starts, preseason hype, and Wembanyama's back. From all accounts, from what I've heard, he's playing. I know that he had the blood clot issue, some of the health issues. From all accounts, it seems like he is playing, and the guy is a phenom. So hoping that he has a long career because he is amazing to watch. And the NBA really needs guys like this with LeBron, Steph, and some of these guys, Kevin Durant, coming to the end of their career. There has to be a step up, I believe, kind of, from these next gen players. Wembanyama is a bright spot if he can stay healthy. So here's an example of a card. A lot of people swear by this card as being, kind of that first important Wembanyama card. Of course, it's not in a Spurs uni, but a popular card nonetheless. So here you go. There's one in a PSA 7 at auction. It ends on Monday night, but like I said, priced a little bit higher than what we've seen recent sales at. We'll stay on Wembanyama here for a minute, and I just thought this card looked cool. So this one at auction here at the PSA eBay store, Donruss Optic Rising Suns Gold Fast Break Wemby. It's numbered out of 10, and it is a PSA 10. Just a great looking card. I like the Rising Suns insert. I had not seen this insert before, and it's at $197 at time of recording. There are 2 days left and change. It ends on Sunday night around 10 p.m., and I thought the bidding was pretty strong here. There's a bunch of bids here right at about $200. So yeah, just kind of a cool card. A lot of the inserts, the parallel collectors, this could be a kind of a cool addition to the Wemby collection. Here's an example of a sticker auto that people don't mind. Now we're in such an age where it's just like these transparent sticker autos. Hard to see if it's like on card or sticker auto. This is a 2003 game used Tiger Woods Mark of a Champion, numbered out of 15. This looks damn cool. So it's at $800 at time of recording. It looks like they've graded. So 3 have been graded. It's numbered to 15. I've always wanted a Tiger Woods auto. The auto isn't graded by PSA, but the card is an 8, which is a nice grade for a card near mint. But the auto looks really good. I know it's coming off of the sticker a little bit. I think there's something to be said for early 2000s Upper Deck products. And it's not just this. This is an example. I know it's a golf card. People are like, oh my God, why are we talking about a golf card? Well, it's the GOAT. It's Tiger Woods. And he's got a great autograph, and they're not cheap. They never are. And I would like to add one of these to my collection at some point. It's just finding the right one at the right price. I just remember just the absolute, Tiger Woods rise and then the fall, going through the divorce and then the rise again. He's just a guy that I think he's, ultra competitive, probably a very complex person and personality, but I actually met Tiger Woods in a gym in Orlando. I lived in Orlando, cardio club, went out of business. But I met him there while he was rehabbing an injury. This is right when his injuries thing started. And then he also was probably, 6 months to a year out of kind of everything falling apart with his marriage and that becoming very public. I did shake his hand, Tiger Woods. Amazing card from an absolutely amazing athlete, obviously. Speaking of amazing athletes, Michael Jordan autographs have been picking up steam here. We've got authentic card with a authentic auto, 7 grade auto. It's not the greatest looking auto. It's pretty streaky, but it is on the iconic going back. I know the 86 Fleer, the most iconic, but I love all the 80s Jordan cards. 87 Fleer, great set. Card actually looks pretty good, but it is just graded out authentic. That's not a PSA 10 card or anything. But this one, they're asking $16,000 OBO. And I think it just speaks to the strength of Michael Jordan autograph cards right now. There's a lot of options though, and so that's where there's just a lot of competition when it comes to this sort of thing. Some people like these kind of in-person type stuff on cards like this, whether it's 86 Fleer, 87 Fleer, star basketball cards. And then others just like the pack-pulled stuff from Upper Deck. There's a lot of those options as well. This is a big price tag, so we'll have to see, kind of follow this one. Is this one going to sell at $15,900 OBO? And we'll finish out here with a little bit of football. As much as I hate to cover a Bucs player as a Saints fan, Baker Mayfield, I like Baker Mayfield. I wish that the Saints had him. He's a guy with moxie. He plays well. He plays tough. He's out there. You could tell he really cares. I just picked this one out because I thought it was cool. It's not a rookie card. It's a brand new card, 2025 Donruss Elite. It is a sticker auto for Baker. So if you're looking for Baker autos, there are plenty of on-card options for him as well. But this is a PSA 10. I just really like the retro, first off, Back to the Future retro design on this card. And then also the orange creamsicle Bucks unis that I prefer way over the pewter, the pewter ones that they have now. I don't like the ones that they have now. I prefer their retro. I wish they wore their retro gear, every game, because that just brings back memories like the olden days of the Tampa Bay Bucks. This is just a cool overall card, but a pretty solid price tag right now, bidding at $167.50 at time of recording. It ends on Monday night. It is it's a total PSA Pop 1. There's only one that have been graded, and it was a PSA 10, and here it is. So I think this person trying to to capitalize on Baker Mayfield and the Bucs starting off hot here to get the NFL season going. Friends, thanks very much for joining me here for another episode today. Looking at some of the hottest cards on eBay in the PSA store. And then, of course, grading cards with PSA. Make sure to use the promo code SCD25 for $25 off that first submission that you have over there. Friends, have an amazing day ahead, amazing week ahead. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.